muchachos. Buenos días or buenas tardes. I hope you all are having a great day so far. Today I'm coming to you with another video lesson. And this time we're going to be doing something a little different than what we've been doing the last several classes. As you remember, we've been talking a lot about those verbs, the decir, salir, which if you remember are irregular and are stem changing. You should know what that means. As well as el verbo, reviewing it a little bit, el verbo ir, which means to go, which also is irregular. And we've been practicing how to use them to talk about things that people say, where they go out, how they get there, using also our vocabulario about transportation modes. And from what I've seen, you guys are doing a great job with that. If you're still feeling a little bit lost, just kind of go back to those video lessons. I try my best to be as clear as possible. But if you guys have any questions or you're struggling with something, please let us know. Like I said before, Mr. Martin has graciously also made himself available. So we're here for you guys, okay? I know this can be a little difficult, but we're here for you. Today, we're going to be talking about prepositional phrases, okay? Oh, and something I wanted to mention as well. I knew there was something else I wanted to add to that. We are going to be having a test in the next, I'd say, week or week and a half or so. I still haven't picked the exact date. It just depends on timing and how we're going with our pace. But within the next week or 2 weeks, we'll definitely have our test on this material. And I'm planning a review, an extensive review. So like I said, if you're still kind of struggling with it, ask for help. But also know that I'm not just going to throw you to the wolves and be like, all right, our test is tomorrow. Good luck. Study. Okay, I do like to prepare you guys. So I'm giving you everything you need to know right now. We're doing practices, reviews, activities. But then when it gets closer to that test, I definitely like to do a review, an extensive review about that material. So it'll be coming in case, you're still a little bit struggling a little bit, okay? Okay, but like I said, today we're going to be talking about prepositional phrases, okay? In case you don't know what that means, I'm sure you've heard this before in English. They're simply words that indicate location or placement, where something is, okay? We have them in Espanol as well. So, as you know, before we get into our grammar lesson on prepositional phrases, I do like to talk about vocabulary first. So, if you guys can look on in your textbook, on page 267, 267, we're going to be looking at a little chunk of our vocabulary. You've been exposed to the whole list of vocab, and I know it's a long one, but we're going to focus on a little chunk of it for today's lesson, okay? And speaking of vocabulario, muchachos, I know I mentioned this probably in every video, but please remember that any little free time you have in class, that's not to be used, to be on your cell phone or surfing the internet or, doing other schoolwork. You're still in Spanish class, so I want to respect that time, okay? So any little free time you have, and let's say you finish the assignment early and you still have about 10 minutes of class left, that needs to be spent on Quizlet, okay? I really need you guys to spend that time on Quizlet for that vocabulario. It's a long list, and I'm aware of that. But the more you expose yourself on a daily basis, that's how you become internally familiar with this vocabulary. Not just, oh yeah, I think I know what that means. No, like you're going to know what that word means. You're going to know how to pronounce it, what it means, how to spell it, okay? But that requires your exposure level to be pretty intense. So any time that you have free in the class, it needs to be spent on Quizlet, okay? And it does get a little bit repetitive. I understand, you're doing the same words over and over, but that's how you learn a new language. The more exposed you it repetitively, the better, okay? So just believe me, okay? Do that. Okay, so let's focus on the vocabulary that we're going to be using in today's lesson on prepositional phrases, okay? And that's, again, on page 267, right under the requesting directions part, even more specifically under the replying section. I'm going to zoom in for you guys here. Under the replying section, and you'll notice how I have some of these squared off That's because not all of these are prepositions, only the ones that I have labeled here. And even in this little section, there's some that are not prepositions. So if I skip a couple of those words, just so you know, I'm doing it intentionally, okay? We will be seeing them throughout the chapter, but I mainly want to focus only on the ones we're going to be using specifically in this lesson, okay? So, again, prepositions are words that indicate location. So you're going to notice that in the English translation, I'm just talking about where something is located or placed. So let's begin up here. Near to. En español, cerca de. Cerca de. And you'll notice throughout a few of these words that you have a little word in parentheses here, to, en español, de. And that is because it just depends on the context of your sentence or your conversation. You may sometimes need to use to, you may sometimes not need to use to, or de in this case, in español. It just depends how you're, describing the location or the preposition. So that's why that's in parentheses. I wanted you guys to be aware of why that is. Okay, moving on. In front of, repeat after me, delante de. Again, delante de. To the right of, a la derecha de. Again, a la derecha de. So right here is derecha, right? The right side, la derecha. Let's skip a couple of these. Now behind. Behind is detrás de. Detrás de. Notice that accent on the a, so I'm going to stress that last syllable there. Detrás de. Behind. Facing, or in front of. I like this translation a little bit better than facing. Facing or in front of, enfrente de. Again, enfrente de. Between, something is in between two things or two places, entre. Again, entre. Moving down just a little bit more, to the left of. So that's the opposite of to the right, right? To the left of, a la izquierda de. One more time. A la izquierda de. And one thing I like to remind you is that whenever you see the Q and the U together, that U is always going to be silent. Do not pronounce that U. Okay? A la izquierda de. Look how I just went right over that U. That one's not pronounced in this case. Beside, next to, al lado de. Again, al lado de. And lastly, far from, the opposite of near, right? Far from, lejos de. Again, lejos de. Remember that J in español makes that J sound. So that's not lejos, it's lejos. Lejos de. Okay, so now that we've reviewed that vocabulary we're going to be using today, let's go ahead. Remember, I like you guys to write this in your notebooks for study purposes. So I know you guys can't take your textbook home. So whenever it's time to review, you have that information in your notebook. There's no excuse, right? No reason why you shouldn't be able to practice that vocabulary at home. And I know you guys may have access to Quizlet at home or maybe your online textbook, but this never hurts, right? It's always awesome, in my opinion, because I'm a paper pen type of person, to have it right in front of you within your materials. Okay? So in your notebook, let's go ahead and title your page for today's lesson, Prepositional Phrases. And we're first going to be talking about the vocabulario, which we just went over. So vocabulary, prepositions. Again, prepositions just means placement or location. Words that express the placement or location of something or someone. So all I did is I went down my list that we just went over, and I only chose the prepositions, the ones we talked about. And all I did was copy them down with the definition. Nothing fancy, nothing difficult. All I'm doing is copying. And you notice it's just a short list there. So if you'd like to pause this video right now, copy this into your notebooks, and then come back when you're ready. Okay, muchachos, if you're back on the video, that means you had this in your notebook and you're ready to move on to our grammar section. Now that we went over our vocabulario and we're, becoming more and more familiar with it, let's move on to our grammar activity for today. So, if you guys could turn to page 256, 256 in your textbooks. And we're going to be doing some examples, and we're going to be seeing our vocabulario in context using those prepositional phrases to express location. I want to be able to tell you where something is located. Okay? So in this little grammar section, we have, when you talk about where things are located, use prepositions. Here are some common ones. And again, these are the ones that we saw in our vocabulario list just a second ago. But now we see it in context. This makes things a lot easier, right? I can see exactly what that looks like in real life, if you will, right? So the good thing about this is that it also incorporates our previous vocabulary, our transportation, as well as our stores, right? Our buildings that we were having, we reviewed several days ago. So we're bringing all the vocabulario together now. I love that. So let's go through this. First, let's talk about what stores or what businesses do we have here. You should be familiar with that, but just to make things a little bit more clear in case you still need to review those, we have el banco. Again, that's the bank. So we have el banco. Next to the banco, look how I'm using my prepositions in English. We're going to see how we use them in Spanish in just a second. Next to the banco, or to the right of the bank, we have la farmacia. You can kind of see the heading up there, farmacia. Again, you should be familiar that that's the pharmacy. To the right of the pharmacy, next to the pharmacy, we have la carnicería. Remember, that's the butcher shop where they sell meat. Carnicería, the butcher shop. And then lastly, to the right of the butcher shop, we have el pan. La panadería, the bread bakery. Remember, there was a difference between la panadería and la pastelería. And this to me looks like a, oh look, you can kind of see the name there. It's very faint. Maybe you can see it better in your textbook rather than through the video. But you can see panadería there. And that's different from pastelería, which is more like a pastry shop where they sell, the cupcakes and the cakes and the fancy little pastries. Whereas this is just your bread bakery, la panadería. Okay? So we already know what businesses we have, what stores we have. And you remember that this is el taxi, the taxi. So we're going to be using that in our prepositional phrases practices as well. Okay. Now let's look, before we get into our sentence structures here, let's look into the vocabulario of the prepositions using these businesses here. Okay? So, detrás del taxi. And please keep this handy. Muchachos, this is not a test. What I'm seeing, muchachos, let me just make a little side note. What I'm seeing in your, not everybody, just a few people, and I made little notes for those of you who I thought were probably doing this. When it comes to do the work on Google Classroom, I'm seeing a lot of like copy and paste type of work, where maybe on a certain question that I ask, I'm thinking, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I'm thinking people are probably Googling stuff because it's worded very differently from how I did in the lesson or how you may see it in the textbook. So I'm thinking people are Googling stuff, Google translating. You don't need to do that, muchachos. I give you everything you need. Everything you see in Google Classroom activity, it's coming from what we have in the lesson. So don't feel like the Google Classroom activity is a test or a quiz. Use your notes. You're able to use what you took from today's lesson to, put that into practice in the Google Classroom assignments. Unless it says it's a quiz or a test, and I will mention that in Google Classroom, then you can use your notes. If it's an assignment, if it says practice, if it says activity, then you can use your notes, okay? No need to go on and Google Translate, because Google Translate is great sometimes, but sometimes it's not so great, okay, to be honest with you. So use what you have. Use what I give you. All right, so detrás del taxi. So we know we're talking about the taxi. Well, look at the preposition there. Detrás del. If we review our notes here, we look at detrás de is behind. So we know that the bank is behind the taxi. So here's a taxi. The bank is behind it. Well, now let's talk about the taxi. Where is the taxi in reference to the bank? Well, we know that the bank is detrás del taxi. Then what can we say about the taxi? Where is the taxi located in reference to the bank? We can say in front of the bank, right? Well, how can we say in front of the bank? Delante de. So here we come, delante del banco. Okay? Well, look at that. Now we have a young lady near the taxi. She's close to the taxi. How can we say that? Again, and I won't keep going back and forth. I'm just kind of showing you guys this is what you can be doing in the classroom. Go back to your list. How can we say near the taxi? Cerca del taxi. She is cerca del taxi, close to the taxi. Now, what do we have next to the bank? Remember, next to or beside was al lado del or al lado de. Al lado del banco, next to the bank. What do we have next to the bank, muchachos? What is that business? Remember, in English is pharmacy. What is it in español? La farmacia. So, la farmacia está al lado del banco. The pharmacy is next to the bank or beside the bank. Now let's talk about the location of my pharmacy. What are some things I can say about the farmacia? Where is it located? I could say many things, but the example we have here is a la izquierda de la carnicería. What am I saying there? Challenge yourself and try to see, what am I saying? A la izquierda de la carnicería. Well, I know carnicería is that butcher shop. And a la izquierda de means to the left of. So, to the left of the butcher shop is the pharmacy, right? A la izquierda de la carnicería. Now, what can we say about the pharmacy in reference to the bank? What prepositions can I use to talk about where the pharmacy is located in reference to the bank? Well, in English, I would say to the right of the bank, right? How would I say that in español, muchachos? To the right of the bank. I could say a la derecha del banco. Now, I'm saying al lado del banco. That's one way, right? But if I want to be more specific, I could say a la derecha del banco, to the right of the bank. Okay? How about the carnicería? Where is the butcher shop? I could say entre la farmacia y la panadería. Now I'm giving you two locations so you can see that entre would mean between, right? So between la farmacia, the pharmacy, y la panadería, the bread bakery, I have la carnicería, the butcher shop. So entre, between. And then lastly, where is the panadería, the bread bakery? I can say a la derecha de la carnicería. Again, look at your notes. What am I saying there? Where is the bread bakery located in reference to the butcher shop? to the right of the butcher shop. A la derecha de la carnicería. You could also say al lado de la carnicería, right? Al lado meaning next to or beside. Al lado de la carnicería. And then another one we could say lejos de esta calle. So you see that is 200 kilometers to the airport of Puerto Angel. Just an example there, right? Well, we can see that that's very far from the street, right? So lejos de esta calle. Very far from the street, we can find the airport. It's far from here. So again, you didn't see every single preposition, but just an example of how we can use that to express the location of certain items. So let's look at our examples here in context. To say Rosa is near the taxi. You repeat after me with these sentences, muchachos, to practice that pronunciation, but also the usage of those prepositions. Rosa is near the taxi. You're going to notice that in green are my prepositions that we're talking about. Okay, so repeat after me. Rosa está cerca del taxi. And this verbo should be coming back to you. Está. Coming from the verbo estar. And again, I know that you guys went over this previously. Estar meaning to be. And you should remember that to be, estar meaning to be, is used for location and feelings and other things. But in this case, about location. You're telling me where Rosa is, right? She's near the taxi. Cerca del taxi. So if you see that verbo, it's just is, are, am, those kind of translations there. The next one, the bank is behind the taxi. Again, we're just kind of reviewing what we talked about. El banco está detrás del taxi. El banco está detrás del taxi. Behind the taxi. How about the taxi is in front of the bank? Let's do that one again. El taxi está delante del banco. El taxi está delante del banco. The policeman is beside the bank. Oh, I just realized we were talking about the policeman, not the not the pharmacy here. Sorry about that. The policeman is beside the bank. El policía está al lado del banco. Notice beside, al lado de. El policía está al lado del banco. The pharmacy is to the left of the butcher shop. Repeat after me. La farmacia está a la izquierda de la carnicería. So we're putting all that information together to complete that sentence there. The butcher shop is between the pharmacy and the bakery. There's my preposition there. Between is entre. What two places? The pharmacy and the bakery. So here we go. La carnicería está entre la farmacia y la panadería. How about this one? The bakery is to the right of the butcher shop. The bakery is to the right of the butcher shop. La panadería está a la derecha de la carnicería. Again, la panadería está a la derecha de la carnicería. And lastly, the airport is far. That's what we're talking about, the little sign there on the street. El aeropuerto, that was another one of our words that we've reviewed on places, right? El aeropuerto está lejos. One more time. El aeropuerto está lejos. And just a little note here, muchachos. Again, we said that sometimes we use de, sometimes we don't. You're going to use de when the preposition is followed by the specific location. So right there I'm telling you specifically, for example, where that is the preposition is located specifically to the carnicería. La carnicería right here again. So I'm using de in those examples there. Banco. There's del. Banco. Del. Taxi. Del. So when it's talking about a specific location, that's when I will use that word de in there. All right, now let's get into our activity for today. We're going to do the first one together, and then I'll let you guys practice with the rest in class before watching a little summary video that I found pretty helpful on YouTube. Okay? So on that same page, 256, and I can't remember if I mentioned this, but my page numbers are off. I have a paperback copy of your textbook, so I'm thinking maybe that's why somehow the pages are numbered differently. So I had to go in and kind of number them according to your textbook. So if you see me kind of throwing out a different number than what you see here, that's the reason, okay? So 256, página 256 at the bottom. Well, we're on the same page. What am I talking about? Sorry, you guys, it's been a long day. Just below that grammar box here, actividad 10, notice how I'm going to now label that in my notebook. So again, if you'd like to pause, just to do the same in yours, is right below your vocabulary that we just wrote earlier today. Grammar, using prepositions to express location. Actividad 10, page 256. So let's see how we're going to be doing this activity. It says, ¿Dónde está? I'm asking you, where is it? Where is that place located? Okay, so as you can imagine, we're going to have to use prepositions here. And it says, explica dónde están las tiendas de la foto. Explain where the stores are in the picture. So you're going to be using the same photograph from our examples earlier to complete activity 10. Okay? So please be mindful that you're going to reference this picture up here. Okay? So let's do the first one together. I'm going to number my paper over here. Actividad 10, número 1. And it says, La carnicería está. So first of all, what store am I talking about? What is la carnicería? Ask yourself that question first. I got to know what place I'm starting at, right? La carnicería, butcher shop, right? So here's my starting point. I know that. La carnicería está, again, there's that verbo estar, meaning is. Where's my pencil? Here it is. Meaning is, the form of estar, to be. The butcher shop is, la carnicería está. Now I have two choices. A la izquierda or a la derecha de la farmacia. So now I not only need to know where I'm starting, but also in reference to what store or what building. Well, in this case is la farmacia, which again, what place is that? The pharmacy. So here, la carnicería está blank de la farmacia. Well, what is the reference point, or what is the location of the pharmacy in reference to that butcher shop? The pharmacy is to the left of the butcher shop. How would I say that in Espanol? Review your vocabulario if you need to. You want to say to the left of, so it's going to be a la izquierda de. And am I going to have to use de? Yes. Because I'm giving you exactly the specific location of that preposition. Okay? So, in my número 1, I'm going to start off. La carnicería está, and we said that it's to the left of, so a la izquierda o a la derecha, muchachos? You tell me. ¿A la izquierda de la farmacia o a la derecha de la farmacia? It will be a la izquierda. La carnicería está a la izquierda de la farmacia. And just because we're talking about prepositions, let me go ahead and highlight or underline my preposition there. Okay, and then I can prove that, yes, my pharmacy is to the left of the butcher shop. So muchachos, you'll do the same thing with 2 through 6, following the example that we just went over. Look carefully at your choices. If you are not familiar with just by looking at them, you have your vocab list in your notebook. Use it. Don't just guess, use it. Okay? So please make sure you do this activity carefully. Tomorrow there will be a Google Classroom activity for you guys to practice and show me how much you've learned. So please go over this notes carefully, complete the activity carefully, and review your notes as much as you can tonight at home so you're able to complete that activity to the best of your ability without having to, look back at your notes so much. They'll be available for you to use, but challenge yourself, okay? And like I said, at the end of this, also there's a video that you guys can watch just to kind of summarize today's lesson. All right, muchachos, great job today. We covered quite a bit today, and like I said, we'll practice some more with this tomorrow. But until then, you guys have a great rest of the day. Hasta luego, muchachos.